Well, hey everyone, and welcome to the Giulio Show. I have an exciting guest with us today, a really good friend of mine that I've known for many years. He started out as a sales consultant when I was in a salon back in the early 90s, late 80s. I forget what it was. But anyway, he went on to have his own distributorship. He went on to found his own company, co-founder of Ultimate Face Cosmetics, which is a great company and does a lot of great things for many organizations as well as film and production. Anyway, my guest today is a lookalike of Steven Tyler. His name is Gary Spellman. Welcome, everybody. Gary Spellman.
Wow, what a pleasure to be here with you, Giulio. Who would have thought you and I doing a podcast and it's your podcast, all the
Well,
way in. So that introduction was phenomenal, and I'm a big fan of Giulio. I believe in Giulio, but I think today I would really like to ask you a bunch of questions that I never got answered. Could I do that?
okay, if you want to turn the tables today, I'll play.
All right. So, as you know, like we have a company and a charity called Peace, Love, Happiness, and in there we have a movie studio, PLH Studios. And I've always been a student of how that story gets told. And I think a lot of people don't understand it. So if I was writing the story about you and you were going to be, like Luke Skywalker, we'd have to follow some kind of like, this is Julio's journey. And I think what would be a great service to everyone who tunes into your show is to understand why it's important that you're here sharing your knowledge, because no one really knows that because you're a humble guy. You don't tell the story. But
Yes.
fortunately and unfortunately for you, I know where the bodies are buried. We started together from driving hair models from Poughkeepsie back to Albany to you hanging out with supermodels in New York. Nobody knows these stories. So when you get someone watching the show and you give all this great advice that's still in the back of the mind, why do I think he's qualified to help? And I think everyone needs to know that. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm a little humble, so you're gonna have to ask me because I
All right.
don't, you know me. I don't like to brag. I just like to do.
Yeah, so today I'm going to make you brag without bragging. I'm going to ask you the questions that I know only you know the answers to, and no. That's it. These are the
Listen, I
questions.
did not know that girl. I did not have inappropriate relation. Are those the questions, or are you gonna ask me
No,
something?
no.
Okay. All right.
No, no. We didn't know any of them, and we did nothing inappropriate, and I'm standing by that.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the beginning, because when you read your books, because you're an accomplished author, you went to Harvard, you've had multiple successful businesses, you've also had a ton of failures. And most successful people like yourself, if you don't roll the dice all the time, you can't grow. And nobody ever thinks about that because a lot of people are just too afraid to roll the dice. And as someone as close as I am to you and as good a friend we are, because I was there for both your kids' births. I was there for all the births of all your schools.
They
And I
kind of
remember
they
when
kind of look like you. But anyway, go ahead.
they are a little taller than you, so I don't know. So that being said, I remember the Mohawk Mall. Do you remember the Mohawk Mall?
Oh my goodness, that was one of the first malls that went up when malls were being invented. That's how old we are, Gary.
Yes, and
So,
that was brick and mortar. You had to go there. And I remember when you were bannered with a silk Paul Mitchell thing with the guy. I believe his name was Nick Ragoon. Remember what was his last name? I know it was Italian.
Nick Ragone, yeah, Nick Ragone.
So that's the first time you and I interacted. And I remember we were the doers. We were cast out by the establishment, which I'm proud to say, because I knew that the distributor we worked for at the time needed us. And it was sort of like we were a necessary evil, almost like the Navy SEALs. No one knew we were there. We were going to wreck the joint. We were going to get results. But if it went wrong, we were going to get blamed no matter what. But if it went
Obviously.
right, everyone's like, right?
Yeah.
So I want to go back I want to go back to what your mom shared with me and you have shared with me when you started with your learning disability and your broken English and things like that. No one understands what you overcame first to get to beauty school. So tell me about that and how you got to beauty school.
Well, you know, as I share quite a bit, and I tell a lot of people, we immigrated over from Italy. And being a young child coming over, I was just a beam of light, just with a lot of energy. But when we came to America, we moved into an Italian neighborhood, but they didn't speak the same Italian I did. They all had different dialects. So I'm like, okay, I'm lost here. But on top of that, I also had to learn English, um, which was the hardest thing to learn because when you're used to one language, now you've got to learn something that doesn't make sense to you. And in school, I could never understand phonics. I just had the hardest time. And teachers just, you know, they didn't really take the time to sit with me. They just pushed me along my school career. Uh, Matter of fact, I did anything. I cheated from other papers, whatever I could do because I couldn't read or write. So I basically graduated high school not knowing really how to read or write. I remember even before graduation, I had met with the guidance counselor, and he told me that I was pretty stupid in many words, and also told me I probably wouldn't make a good garbage man. Uh, and at that time, that was like a low blow. But
A
uh,
good paying job.
it's a great paying job, and we need them. So I can
Yeah,
understand his
exactly.
logic in that. But pretty much he said, "You have no hope. See you later." So yeah,
And what did that do
struggling.
to you? Because as a young kid who's struggling already, and someone of authority in the school system says that to you, what does it do to your psyche?
Well, it's a build up to the whole thing, but what it does is it just makes you have a low self esteem. Uh, it doesn't give you any possible thoughts that you can be possible. You just feel like a failure, and you say, "What do I do now? Do I just give up, or?" You're lost. You're just lost. And here's somebody that could have mentored me and gave me words of wisdom and helped me along the way and built me up. But instead, some mentors just want to knock you down at the knees for their own selfish reasons. And I never understood that as I got older in life, why someone would do that to anyone.
I think you hit it on the head. It's just insecurity, and that's just human nature at times,
Yeah.
and where they come from. And someone who met you early on in your career, you were always a bright light. I knew because my role was to sell product and education to salons through the Paul Mitchell Company, and your job was to execute the vision of the education to make salons stronger and better business people. So would you say you've always, let's start with your first hairdresser job. What was that like? After you get out of high school, how do you get to the beauty industry? How did you get here?
Well, just thank God you weren't one of my first clients. I made, I had some gifts, but I also made a lot of discoveries with those gifts. But you know what? When I got out of school, I had good mentors in the school, people who finally saw the value within me and saw that I had full potential. They led me to a cuttery salon. It was called New York Clippers at the time, and we charged about what $2.99 a haircut. But it helped me continue learning and building upon my skills and allowing me to make more discoveries so that I can learn even more. I didn't make discoveries and get in the corner and cry. I just asked more questions. Yeah, I had a pit in my stomach, but I knew that if I just got out of that scarcity of asking questions and started practicing and doing, especially now that I have this opportunity to work in this industry, I can only grow, so
Excellent.
yeah.
So now you're in your first salon and you're making discoveries. And I remember driving around and seeing some of your discoveries walking down the street, and I knew they were your haircuts.
Yeah, I can
But
show you how to make hair disappear.
and clients gone.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
so when you have your breakthrough as an artist, what was it that you said, I can do this job? What drew you in after you go, oh, these hands are magic? And truthfully, to the whole audience listening, I've watched Giulio for most of my career. We've worked side by side with everything from John Paul Mitchell Systems to the Peace Love Happiness charity to what he does down in Florida with the police. he's a gifted man, but your art is something that I think gets overshadowed. And I'd love to touch on one of your defense mechanisms because you're naturally a humorous guy. You're funny as hell. But you told me
that was
one,
my mask for many years.
and I would love you to put that out because you and I used to have pretty deep conversations because we were the workhorses. We would drive from Albany to Poughkeepsie or Binghamton. We'd do a show in a tiny little place. And then we'd get girls who thought they were going to be the next supermodels. They'd go to the hair show, be a hair model. And you would have to stay and do education for salons, and I would have to drive models back to Albany and go, my boyfriend's going to hate my haircut, So it's like, so as we do this journey together, I would love to know, because you said it best once, that you put yourself in a corner because no one took you serious because of your sense of humor, because that
Yeah.
was one of your masks.
Yeah, that was a big struggle, and I had to learn how to use that sense of humor. I had to learn when it was, the right time because everything was a joke. Because I
Yeah,
was insecure. I lived behind a mask. So if you brought up a subject, I was sure I wasn't going to know it. So what I did was just start cutting up jokes and, having fun and diverting the question or the challenge. But not when it came to hair. I mean, I still joke
no.
around when I did the hair, but when it came to the art, I really threw myself in. But if you were to, ask me a question and somewhat what I thought at the time was too intelligent for me, I would just, and you knew, you were around me, I would just rip a joke. But, you know, I always sought out education. And when I saw Paul Mitchell was just starting in the early 80s, and I was at your distributorship. And I
Yep.
saw Paul Mitchell on stage, and John Paul was with him as well. But he had an energy. I saw me, through
Yeah.
him. And I was like, I can do this, man. I can learn and I can share with other people. I have to be a part of this family. I have to be a part of this culture. And that's how I got involved with the distributor and you. And it was just straight out magic from there on in. And mentorship. Because what I loved about Paul Mitchell is they never looked or devalued me, even if I was a jokester. They would just mentor and help me understand how and when to use that, or how to do things, or they would, correct me when I would speak poor English. And when they didn't laugh. They just like, hey, they saw the value and they just built upon that, which just gave me the drive to keep going. Somebody finally believes in me and knows I'm possible.
So from there to where you make your next jump, your first real big salon, Central Bellizza, right? Was that
Well,
your first big salon?
that was the first big one. The first salon started at 21. It was called Giulio's International Hair Designs after I got back from
Oh,
Europe.
that's right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. On
And
Courier
how long did
Road.
we have that one again? When did we? So this is so important because you're a mentor, whether you know it or not. But you have very successful beauty schools with Paul Mitchell. How many are you up to now? 9 or 6? What is the number on that?
It's 6. I
All
kind
right,
of
good.
dwindled down a
So,
little bit, but yeah.
and I want to touch on that because in the beginning we talked about failure is a huge part of your success, just like John Paul's, just like Steve Jobs. If they don't have the failure, they don't propel next because you can't learn. So if we go back to that salon, that Giulio's first salon, 21, what was it like for you? Because you never owned a business before that. And I think people who watch and respect you never knew this. They just thought, hey, you're good friends with the Paul Mitchell family and you got blessed and you just walked into this and you know Win, you know John Paul, you know everybody. So this was easy. No, I
No.
think they have to understand how you thought because so many of your kids that you mentor in your school go out to open a business with no clue, but they had the benefit of your wisdom. You had none of that.
No. I just, when I started, I was given good advice, either keep focusing on fear and don't go anywhere, or add faith, because you got to pick one of the two. And I gave faith an acronym, which is a fierce attitude in the heart. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to start living
Say
through
that again
faith.
because you said that kind of fast. I like that.
Yeah,
So
because
faith,
Zig Ziglar always said fear was FEAR, false evidence appearing real. But he said choose faith, but he didn't have an acronym for that. And I'm like, there's got to be one. So FAITH, fierce attitude in the heart, is what I gave it. So
that's
and
beautiful.
yeah. So anything I do, I'm going to
Anyone
do
out
with
there, write
faith.
that down.
So anything I'm going to do, I'm going to do with a faith, with a fierce attitude in the heart, whether it be with my faith in my God or with business. And here I got an opportunity. Somebody says, "Hey, the salon is available for rent. You can start your own business." And I did not know anything about business. I did not know anything. I didn't even know I had to file taxes. So,
No.
but I just jumped in and went. A lot of people said, today a lot of people want to work 9 to 5, but when you open your own business, no, you're working from 6 to midnight or whatever. So I
And
just
you
jumped
still do
in.
that.
Yeah, and I still do
Yep.
that.
Yeah, you do.
Well,
So
go ahead.
go ahead. I want to hear the rest of this because this is a great story I forgot all about.
Well, it was funny because my mindset was give great customer service, give great services, and offer all the services that you've learned in the beauty industry. My goodness, I used to even do waxing, tanning,
Well, I
you
know
named
why you
it.
did waxing.
But I never was taught. I was self-taught, and I just jumped in and did what it took because failure was not an option, even though I've hit a lot of failure points when I first opened up. But thank God for mentors. Thank God for my distributorship. Thank God for friends like you who would jump in and say, "Hey, did you think of this? Did you think of that? Did you do this? Did you do that?" Which, once again, I had to learn by tripping and falling. And rather than giving up, I got great advice from mentors like you guys, and I was able to propel forward. But it wasn't easy. I would make money, lose money. I would make clients, lose clients. I mean, I had to sit back and really figure out how to keep within the guardrails, how to keep on that straight path rather than veering off because I'm ADHD, man. I go all over the place, but I
Yeah.
had to learn to bring that in.
We used to have a saying, boys and girls who are watching this podcast, when Giulio he is energy unbridled. So we used to say if we nailed his foot to the floor, he'd walk in a circle.
Pretty much.
And the thing that I always appreciated about you, Giulio, is you're honest. And sometimes direct honesty gets met with he's abrupt.
Mm.
But direct honesty, you can always be sure of where you stand with you. And what you said just now is so important for anyone that is in your schools or worked with you. The gift you're given now, and this is why I'm on the show today and why I wanted to flip it around because you have the Joe Rogans of the world, and everyone goes out and writes books, but your books and your podcasts were designed from your heartbreak and struggle, so no one has to do it again. I look at it like the book is a gift. Your podcast is a gift to anyone who's been in your school who wants to do what you do because you're raw. You're like, this is where I fell down. This is how much it hurt, but it won't kill you, and you've got to get up. Let's talk about after you leave 21, you get the big salon, but then you almost die. I remember when you were in the hospital, and went up there to see you, and John Paul called you on the phone. And I said, "Well, JP, he's in a coma. He's not fit to talk right now."
He did leave a message, and I kept that message, which when I woke up from that, it was amazing to hear that somebody like John Paul would take the time out, and many other people to try to get in touch with me, even though I was in a coma. Even some clients like, "What do you know when he's waking up? Because I need my hair done."
Yeah, I've got
So
an appointment. So is Mary going to do me today? What's the deal?
Yeah, exactly. How long do you think he's going to be out? I always look at the Big Bang Theory, Sheldon, when his barber was in a coma and he goes to the the hospital with scissors and he's trying to wake him up to get his hair cut. That's how I was told. I mean, I was left many messages, but in that right before that happened, I did have the bigger salon and spa in Clifton Park called Central Belitza. And I just signed a lease to start expanding because I knew I wanted to grow. I knew I wanted to expand, not because I wanted to become rich. I wanted to help other people because I helped them in my salon and I watched them grow. And I know that we could do this together and grow even more. Money was never the focus of why I did things. I did
No.
it because of the love of people that was given to me, and now it was my turn to give it back. But yeah, I fell into that coma. It was an elective surgery. Who knew, that I'd be in ICU for 6 months on ventilators. But it took 6 months in the hospital and followed by uh, multiple surgeries after that and many challenges. But I had a choice, have a pity party or keep going forward. Whether you're in a wheelchair, on oxygen tank, you still have a lot to give. Don't get me wrong. At one point, I wanted to give up everything and me. Just yeah, I'm not worthy anymore. I'm priceless. But great mentors and great friends like you guys were like, man, you still have things to offer. You still have things to give, and you inspired me to get back and fight the odds, and I did. It took 3 years, but I fought the odds of what the doctors said would never be possible. They were wrong. And I believe that was my God, and who sent me the right mentors and the right people like you guys in my life to propel me forward. And that's my
I,
job.
what you just said is so important because a lot of people, because we are close friends, and that's one
Yeah.
of the friendships I value very much. And you've always got my back, and I've got yours. And so when that happened, I remember now if Giulio goes away selfishly, I'm going to catch all the heat. At least when problems happen, we could split the problem. So when you came out and you realized that, and I don't want to say it the wrong way, but you were chosen. And I believe everything has a plan, everything has a season, and it wasn't your time. And at that time, I believe the person taking care of you from up above said, "You've got bigger things to do."
Yeah.
So, did you ever feel that? And when you did, if you did feel it, what was that transformation? When did you go, "I have to do this now"?
I fought with that because I did pass away, and the doctors did tell my parents he's going to have a 10% survival chance. Most likely, he drowned on his lung, lost a lot of oxygen. He'll probably be brain damaged. And my mother said he already was. So,
Yes,
we're not going to worry about
don't go
that.
play. That's
But
enough of your head.
it was a stupid anyway. But But when I woke up, and like I said, I went through that self pity for a little while. All of a sudden, when I started to revive and take some walks, and I never noticed trees before, I never noticed lawns. It just, the, and looking back at the coma, I can remember every dream in that coma, and something spiritually was fighting for me. And I
Yeah.
realized that it was God. God saying, "You're not done, and these evildoers are not going to take you. We're going to fight for you, and you're going to go out there and finish what I put you here to do." Uh, and it just was it was like how can you say, the Holy Spirit just came on to me and said, "Go." And
And
I did.
yeah, and I love the fact that you're proud to talk about it because in today's environment, you got to be careful what you say. But I was there with you. I know what happened. I saw what happened. So, and then I look at the gifts you were given, like your boys, Stefano and Giulio.
Hmm.
I mean, I remember holding them when they were brand new and they were in Central Belize. And at that time, your salon was the it salon. So we would decorate those windows with snowboards and hay bales. And Stefano was too small, but Julia would knock it down. I'm like, come on, Julia. And Nikki was there. So, I mean, and now they're such fine young men and you've raised them right. So if you don't mind touching on that, because a lot of people out there are going, yeah, but I'm a single parent, or I'm a parent, but I don't know if I can do that many hours because you juggled it all. I remember going in there and you're like, can you come by at like 8 o'clock to do my color order? Of course I can. I mean, that's what we did, and you and I worked, or we would shovel driveways when it snowed in upstate New York. You helped the salon, and I remember the little pom pom hats your sons had. These crazy things just stayed in my head. So first, you get young Giulio. I remember when he came here. So let's talk about how that, because I think, when was he born? Was that after when you went in the hospital or
Yeah, he
before?
did. He was he while I was in the recovery of the rehab hospital, he just turned one. And
That's what I thought.
no, I think Stefano just turned one, and Julio was just turning three.
Oh, he's three. That's right. They're 2 years apart.
Yeah.
So, and I know you because that's some of your proudest achievements. You and I talk about fatherhood and what it means to us. But as you're in there and you're still fighting and God steps in, you have to. I just know your heart has to go, well, I got two boys. I got to go to basketball camp or something. What's going through your mind then in rehab?
Well, I'll tell you, they were another reason for wanting to keep going. I love my kids very dearly.
Yes, you.
And you know, people know it because, man, I just, they're my heart, my soul, my everything. Um, how can you not love your kids? And I knew that I had to be the role model that they needed in their life. So, you know, I did everything. My actions were for them. My behavior was for them because kids will mimic what they see.
Oh yeah,
And I wanted to make sure they had a good foundation, a good culture, a great faith base. And I have to give credit to my ex-wife at the time, it was my wife, that, you know, she also had that kind of mentality as well. Is we lived for our kids to make sure that
yeah,
we could give them a great quality of life, because that's what my parents did for us. They were the example of what it meant to sacrifice. And you know, we would bring him to the salon. I mean, he was
oh
just a baby. Giulio, before Stefano was born, he would come and sit in his baby chair, and he grew up in the salon. And so did Stefano. They grew up in the schools, so
yeah,
they grew up in the atmosphere. So a lot of times it is difficult for single parents to raise kids. And today, what's great about being a hairdresser, even being a stay-at-home mom or dad, you can open a little salon in your house and be stay at home and still work at home and produce income.
yeah,
At that time, that was unheard of to do that, you know, type of business, you know, in your house. But you know, whatever it takes now, it is possible. And here's the thing, though, you know, a lot of people always say, Jewel, I want to do what you do, but are you willing to do what I did? You got to do the did to get to the do.
yeah,
Now, I did sacrifice a lot of time, but I made sure that the time that I spent with my kids was the most quality time available. I left work to go watch the game and then ran back to work, or I would go to
yeah.
their practice. If I traveled to do shows, when I got home, I made sure I spent time with them. And what I mean by that is I didn't spend time on the phone. I didn't spend time texting. I didn't spend time. I was in the now with them.
You had dad hours. I remember we talked
Yeah.
about that. Like certain times I'm unapproachable. I'm with my kids. And I think, and I'm gonna, this might make you blush, it might even touch your heart a little too much, but I know both your boys. And I remember when we would go set up Ultimate Face at the school meetings, such gentlemen, because sometimes I couldn't go, so my wife's by herself, and both your boys would come help her set up. And the way they speak about you with such love and reverence. And anytime I speak to them, it's this way. And it's like, you know, Gary, and they love you so much, they respect you so much. And the cool thing is they don't begrudge the time they didn't have. They only see the great time they had. And they understand what you sacrificed to be where you are so they could be where they are. Because like Stefano and I talked about what you went through to get here, and he doesn't know if he could have done what you did. That's the level of respect your boys have for you. So I think so. If we're going forward and everyone's going, holy crap! I had no idea Giulio was this guy. I thought he was just a slick hairdresser who done good. They don't understand the journey. You said it just 2 seconds ago. Yeah, I want to be Giulio, but they didn't understand how many nights or days we sat there, and even I go through it. Like, where's the cash flow? You don't understand you don't understand business till you sweat and payroll,
Yeah. Mm.
so at this point you've got your craft, you've mastered your craft, you've got the respect of the industry. And I know that because just because celebrities are celebrities, but you worked in the celebrity world. They asked for Julia when we did New York Fashion Week. They asked for you. Nikki Taylor requested Julio. And that back then, for you kids that don't know, there used to be supermodels, and there was five big ones, and Nikki Taylor was at the top with Naomi Campbell, Christy Turlington, and that's what gave birth to this whole movement. And you were there, and that doesn't make you a better hairdresser, but it does in some ways because your craft spoke for itself. So now you mastered your craft, you're taking your knocks in business. So you're at Central Bleats, and there's this opportunity to get into schools. But before you go, where's your mindset now? You've got your two boys, you've come back from death, and you have an opportunity, and you still don't. Where do you go from there? Because I still know the Julio that was there.
Well, you know, it's funny because when I was talking to Win, who was, you know, the co-founder with John Paul for the schools, and told me Paul Mitchell was going to start schools. Man, I always wanted to start a school because my
Yeah.
passion was teaching others. Even though I did well behind the chair, I always had people behind me, and I made a point to teach them so that they can grow, not look at me how great I am. And I haven't mastered it. I'm still learning. To learning for me
Hmm.
is a journey, not a destination. But when I heard this, I used to sit there and fantasize outside my house and visualize myself owning a school to the point that I would take weekend trips to Florida because that's where I wanted to go, Florida. I wanted to open up in Florida, and I would book right at the airport at the Holiday Inn, and I would sit
Yeah.
in the back pool area and just make believe I lived there. I imagined myself there. I made believe I lived there. I just kept owning it. And then when I got home, I said, okay, that's it. We'll leave the salon open. I'm going to row the boat to Florida. And when I get there, I'm going to burn the boat because there should be no options that I can get back. I got to make this happen. And it didn't happen right away. It took a couple of years of living out in Florida, but I uprooted my family, sold my house. I did it. I just did it. I didn't think. I didn't think of the fears. Something came over me and said, "This is what you got to do. Do it." And this is going to be your platform to help others.
Well, I think you said something that most people forget. There's a fear that holds us all back. When you knew you wanted this, and I remember you talking about that when you were still cutting hair and owning salons, you said we need better beauty schools. And then John Paul did a great ad in one of the magazines, I think Salon Today, about being a hairdresser is super cool, and that's what sparked all this with you because you're right. And then Win Claybaugh, who's been very instrumental and very prominent in this industry, he's not even a hairdresser because he loves hairdressers and he gives back like you and he sees your talent. You've been friends with him for 100 years, like we have. And so you look at it and you go, all right, I'm going to do this. But you almost manifested this. You sat in the place you wanted to be and you pretended you were already there. And that, even if you go back and look at how successful people do things, and you were doing well, but you weren't the Giulio. You were still manifesting. How am I going to get my school? And you made it happen through will, the love and support of your family, and your reputation as a quality human being.
And a lot of prayer.
All a ton of
A
it.
ton of
A
prayer.
ton of it.
Because you said it before, as an entrepreneur or as a founder of a company, you take on all the risks. I mean, it's not like, and people don't realize that even when you open up a beauty school, before you get approved, you have to build it first. Then they will approve whether you get your license for it. So now
Oh,
you're investing all this money, not knowing if it's a sure thing, if the state or the federal government will even allow you to have it. Uh,
so when you think on that for a minute, boys and girls, I love this part when they go, "What if Giulio doesn't get funding? The kids have to pay out of their pocket. How hard is it for someone to go to a school on their own nickel? It's impossible, right?"
Yeah. Oh,
And so,
yeah. I mean, most of us don't have money to whip out of our pockets and make it
no,
happen.
that's why we go to beauty school. So if you're listening right now, so you understand how much he believes in this industry and himself at this time, this is a roll of the dice that might go away. And your life's work, your money, your family's been uprooted, and boom, it's gone. You could have nothing. But what would you have? This is what I need everyone to understand about Giulio. What would you have done if that happened?
I would have cut hair again. Yeah, I would have went behind the chair. Listen, there's always an option to do something. I wasn't made to not. I was made to do and to give. So it's going to be a risk. And listen, when I found out how it took 2 years before I even found a location that somebody would even talk to me to build a school in Florida. But I didn't give up. And then when they finally told me how much it was going to cost to build out, I stayed very calm and cool. And I was like, yeah, well, let me think about this location because they were like, it's going to cost about $2 million. I'm like, I don't have $2. I'm
Yeah.
like, how am I going to do this? but
I
they
got a
started.
dollar 50.
Yeah, exactly. But they started speaking a language I did not know, and when I showed, like, well, let me think upon this, and they really wanted us in there. He was like, "Don't worry about it. We'll pay for the whole build out, and we're amortizing through your rent and everything." And I'm like, "Okay, I'll think about it." And I'm like, "What the hell does amortize mean?" You know, so
Yeah.
but I went and looked it up, and I mean, he not only gave me a great rent, including the amortization, which means over 10 years I will have that 2 million paid off. I took the risk and I said, okay, sounds like a good deal. Let's do it. I still had to fish some money, get some angel investors. I had a lot of doors closed on me, slammed on me, but there were people who believed and gave me a couple $100,000, but not compared to the 2 million I needed. But no was not an option. And yes, I'm
No.
going to make this happen was the option. And when you really have a burning desire and great faith that this will happen, you will find ways to make it happen, no matter how many no's you get.
And something I think is really important that everyone has to understand who really, if you know you well enough, you know this is you. You're a student of life. You're a student always, whether it's hair or business. And so a lot of people don't understand you went to Harvard and got an MBA. Imagine not knowing. This is really important for you to hear that. Giulio just admitted he didn't know what amortization is or EBITDA or all those big words that fancy people throw at us people. And some of the best advice that you and I ever got was from Luke Jacobellis. And Luke said, Gary, make them talk to you like you're a 10-year-old.
Yeah.
And I started doing that. And so when I asked for amortization, what you boys and girls have to know, over 10 years, every year, Giulio had to give 200,000 plus to pay back. That's what it means to get that 2 million off his books so he could start making profit. So knowing you, and most people don't know this, he's a ninja. And if he gets backed in, he's going to give you a joke, keep you at arm's length, but he's going to go home and he's going to research it, and he's going to come back as smart, if not smarter, than the guy who put him in the corner. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah. Yeah. I, first of all, I, I, if I'm going to build a team or have believers, I can't show them that I give up, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, I might cut a joke. You're right. I will probably cut a few jokes, but then I go home and I have think time. I get alone and I work out every scenario possible. Believe me, it was not easy to work out those scenarios. And I used every approach that I could get. And same thing with, the accreditation that you were talking about earlier. How are we going to get this to make this work so that people can come here and we can give them foundations that they need? But also, how can we give them the knowledge to know that anything is possible? And I share my story with them to let them know that what I thought when I thought I was not possible, I was possible. It wasn't about how smart I was, it was about how I was smart. And I would use that how I was smart to get what I needed to do and get it done. Man, I came out with negotiations that people were like, that's not going to work, but it worked. Why? Because they were afraid to use it. I wasn't.
Yep. And I think that is one of the most important things we're going to uncover for anyone listening is conventional wisdom will kill your dreams. Because the naysayers, the people who are afraid to roll the dice and risk it, they have risk adversity. So when a rebel entrepreneur like you or John Paul or Wynn sits across from them, they don't know what to do. And in many situations, I've been very fortunate to be with John Paul on a lot of deals. And I've watched a room of blue suits look at the guy in the black T-shirt with the PLH on it, like we own this guy. He didn't go to Harvard. He didn't go to Duke. And John Paul does math like a savant. And by the end of the time, when all these blue suits look at him, he goes, "No, that's off by 3 points. You come back with this, this, and this. Maybe we'll talk." And he goes, "Come on, Gary, let's go to lunch." Out we go. And that's and that's like you. And so when you have these students, because they're listening now. We've got them now. They understand why Giulio is a good mentor. The framework says so. Let's talk about the business of framework and how you build a company. What do you start with? What do you look for in an employee? And what are some of the systems? Because right now, from what they're hearing, is like a struggle. What I know for a fact is Orlando got voted the best beauty school. Correct?
2 years in a row. Yeah.
2 years in a row from a guy who said couldn't do it and it wouldn't work. So here we are, fast forward to 2 years in a row, the best beauty school. So what's your framework? Because I don't want to steal it because I kind of get you. I've been with you long enough. I know how you operate. So just share how you did this.
Well, one thing is always important is, you have a vision and you got to write that vision down, which then you create a system from that and a culture from that vision. And we together collectively created with a bunch, a few people, very small amount of people created a culture, and said that, and we understood that culture was key. And what you tolerate is what you get. And that was a great saying from Keith Cunningham. Culture's king. What you tolerate is what you get. Well,
Yeah.
and here's the thing. We had to make sure that we set the precedence of who we are, what our culture is, what our systems, but we had to give the training and the tools to equip those people and letting them know that this is the vision. The vision is to, take care of our customers, and our customers are the students. Make sure they get the best education ever, the best customer service ever. And how do we do that? By, giving our team the best tools and information they needed. So when you start a company, make sure that you stay firm with your vision, with your system, with your cultures. You may tweak a little things here and there, but it can't live in your head because, you'll change things. Like if you feel like wearing jeans today, but your culture said no jeans, then all of a sudden, well, okay, today everybody can wear jeans. And from now on, we can wear jeans, or we could do this, or we can do that. If you keep changing it, you have no consistency. Now, is everybody going to be happy? No, but the majority of the people that came through our schools were extremely happy and went on to become extremely successful, not because we made them successful. We offered them the right tools, the right team, the right mentorship so that they can go on with their dreams. Did I answer your question, or did I kind of
Yeah, you
float
did
around it?
because you hit it. No, you hit it perfect because everyone listening is now hearing that you have to set the boundaries. This is this is consistency in messaging. This is what we stand for, and you get what did John Paul say? Inspect what you expect.
Yeah.
So when you signed up to work for Giulio, this is what you signed because when we do the same thing, this is our culture. This is what we expect from employees. You read that, and if you can do that, we'll give you the 90-day trial. But this is what you signed. You're going to do the following. You're going to be part of this. And one of the things I've learned from great business minds is when you sit them down, I never manage the person. I manage the system they agreed to follow. And that's something you do a lot of. So as you're looking at this and we're going down the road, what do you see as the future? If you're giving advice to people coming into our industry, what is the advice you give someone coming in? And when they're going out and they want to, because right now everyone's a superstar. The insta famous. They think that these guys on Instagram who are showing you this gorgeous work. It's a 14-hour photo shoot, and these poor kids are trying to duplicate it in a salon, and they're trying to do it in 4 hours. And now they're losing clients, losing money. So I think it's important. Someone who's got the scars to prove that he's fought the dragons and won. What advice would you give to someone first entering the business
The right
or
advice.
anybody?
It's like, here's what I got to tell you. It's like Shaquille O'Neal walking up to 5'6" Giulio and saying, if you really put your mind to it, you can be a great NBA player. No, I don't have the DNA for that.
Nope.
So,
Nope.
there are a lot of false inspirational advice that you need to stop and think. Listen, we live in a microwave world, right? We want
Yeah.
everything really quickly. And this is what we got to reinstill in our lives. We want titles, we want positions. I told people I was that way too. I want to be president tomorrow. But listen, I couldn't sustain that because I can get the title, but how am I going to sustain that title if I haven't learned how to get and keep that title, or the culture, or the systems and the work that goes behind it? So my analogy is get back into the crock pot, get out of the microwave. Okay, get back
Yeah.
into the crock pot. Let it cook slowly, meaning the knowledge, the wisdom, the techniques. Work at it and let it let it get tender. Let that moisture built up was inside, and the flavors, which is knowledge, seep through that beautiful roast that you got in the crock pot, which is your mind. And
Stop!
when
I'm thinking of your mother's dinner now. I'm getting
I know,
hungry now.
right? But the great thing is when you get to where where your goals are, and I hope that when you get to your goals you set new ones, but when you get to that higher position, how much more can you sustain that? Gary, you and I've seen so many times people that have slept their way to the top, lied their way to the top, cheated their way to
Yeah,
the top. But we've watched them fall past us a lot quicker and a lot faster than those who took the
yeah,
time to understand, so that when they did get that promotion or they did get that gig, they could understand. Now, when you come out of the school, most people are like, well, I'm going to open up my own business and make $1 million and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, I love the enthusiasm and I hope you make all the money in the world, but let's forget about that. Don't focus on the money. What I need you to focus on is if you're going to get out and start your own business, you better make sure you have enough revenue to support the bills that are going to come while you're building that business. And that's booth rental. There's nothing wrong with it. Some people have the gift to make it happen right away. But I personally went out and started in a cuttery where they offered education, where I could build my speed, my skills, make my mistakes, because that was like phase two of my learning. And then when I got comfortable with that in a year, I moved up to the next level salon, and got more comfortable with that. Then I went into a private salon year after that, and for the first few months, I didn't want to do the towel. I didn't want to be the gopher. I had to do the towels, but I didn't want to be the gopher. I wanted to learn. I wanted to grow. And when I felt confident enough, I opened my own business. Now, same thing as booth rental. If you get right out of school, I didn't have a lot of clients. However, I opened it and went out and met people and met as
yeah,
many as I could and gave them my card, because we didn't have Instagram, Facebook, all that modern technology. But today too, you could sit there and say, "Yeah, but I got 100,000 followers. Yeah, I got. I'll just put it on Facebook." Listen, what gets the most attention is word of mouth and the results
yeah,
of your work and the experience that the client got. But if you're posting all these wonderful things, but when the client comes in and they're not meeting that person that was wonderful on Instagram or Facebook, and they see a
yeah.
total opposite, you're not going to win. So there's a lot more than just going on and posting and think it's going to happen overnight. Take your time, get in the crock pot. It will come, and when it comes, watch out, because if you keep the focus on the great experiences you can give other with the great techniques that you have, money will be thrown at you like you've never seen before. And that's what John Paul taught me. Uh,
Yeah.
John Paul didn't
He
start out as
was,
a billionaire.
no,
He
no.
started out
He was
homeless.
350 borrowed dollars sleeping in a car. And the
Exactly.
thing that I want to touch on is your level of gratitude. And then, there's a great friend of ours, and he's a country singer. His name is Ray Wiley Hubbard, and he has a great saying. He says, "The day I keep my gratitude higher than my expectations, I have good days." And
True,
so
true.
what we looked at now is you've always had a servant's heart, because we talk about that all the time. You've kept your gratitude higher than your expectations, because when you do that, you're always giving thanks and there's a good energy. And that's a lot of what your culture is. So as you go into your schools, they graduate, and I meet a lot of your students. I mean, just if you're listening right now, Giulio has influenced so many people that you'll never know. He doesn't know. I meet him when I'm out in my travels. Oh yeah, you're from upstate. Like I have friends still in Saratoga, and I don't know how many of your students from Schenectady have opened beautiful salons in Saratoga. You know what I mean? This is what you've given them, and you've always kept it like we've kept it. Because John Paul and I and you and we started Peace, Love, and Happiness out of a necessity, because people weren't doing the right thing. We don't want to force you to do the right thing. That's your gift, and that's what people forget. Charity is a gift, but when you live purpose before profit, the money just comes at you. And that's what Giulio just was saying about John Paul, and how if you lead with that servant's heart, you're giving before you take. And
Yeah.
a lot of these people are looking for the shortcut to the cash without giving, without working. And you don't have to suffer to be successful, but know if you do suffer, there's a light at the end of the tunnel and you'll appreciate what you have. Is
Well,
that a fair assessment?
That's a fair assessment because you're right. You know what? I may not have money in the beginning of my career, but I have a gift. Now I can go to the
Yeah,
coalition, I can go to the nursing home, I can go to a cancer center, and I can share my gifts with these people just by doing their hair, their makeup, whatever it is, because that makes them feel good. Um, and then when the prosperity hits, then you can share the prosperity with other people. That's when you start making money, it gives you and become fruitful. It gives you the opportunity to share that blessing with so many others. If you get greedy, you're only hoarding. And listen, every one of us has an end date, and you can't take it
yeah.
with you. But the more, and I'm not saying you got to empty your pockets. You still got to pay your bills. You still got to feed your family. But don't be so greedy and be so afraid that you can't give to others and help them along the way. And like I said, it doesn't always have to be money. My God, what did we learn during COVID? you know?
We missed each other, what we learned, and we needed contact. And I think I'd like to two things I want to wrap with you, and then I'll turn the show back over to you. And first, I want to say thank you for letting me commandeer your show today. But I felt it was super duper important that people got to know you like I
Thank
know
you.
you, love you like I know you, but most of all, respect the man you are and the heart you have. So, leading into that, how many times in your career were you at the like, I think we're going out of business? Because every entrepreneur goes to that point and then it hits. And then if this other thing I see happening, and this is you and I have seen it 100 times, they make money here. But then they think because they made money here, they're going to make it over in restaurant world or in the smoothie shop or the Kona Ice franchise, and they go broke. Or they open different businesses. So I would like you to talk to that because people think once you make money, it's always going to be there.
No.
It's not. Money has an energy.
no, COVID was just another reawakening of many times that I've had it, lost it, had it, lost it. And as an entrepreneur, you're going to have those experiences there. But once again, sometimes, and I got caught up in that net, where I thought, well, if I diversify and open up another floor cleaning business or this or that, I don't know about those businesses. And what ended up
Right.
happening is I lost, and the money that I thought was here was all sucked up here. So what was this once here went all the way down here. So that's what you get with a financial advisor, and they'll help you invest your money so that you diversify properly, or you invest in your retirement. But what do you know best? What do you do best? And stick to that and grow upon that. And like I said, I had to learn that the hard way myself. Now, listen, before COVID, and Gary, you probably know this because you went through it too, is all of us did, but we as entrepreneurs, we were doing good. We were doing all right. It's like, woo, things are finally happening. Then a slap in the face. We were shut down. They still wanted their rent. Bills still had to be paid. And all of a sudden, what lived here in the bank account disappeared. And next
Yeah.
thing you know, you're remortgaging your house, not because of foolish things that I need, but how do I keep these businesses open? Because there are people who count on me for their livelihood. And for
Yeah.
their careers, and how do I keep that going, and what sacrifices do I have to make? I'm still paying for that. I mean, it's not something you recover quickly. We're starting to see some recovery, but during that recovery, we did lose a couple of businesses. It's
Yeah.
unfortunate, but for instance, one school we opened up right the day COVID closed us down.
Yeah. I remember.
We could never have a recovery from that. So, and there's nothing to be shameful about. It's like wrong time, wrong place, and who knew? But a chance you take. My nephew, who had a gym, just opened that and just was starting to take off. And next thing you know, they wiped him out and his
Yeah.
business out. So many people I know that were doing well and even helping others were given this lesson in life and I don't think it was by accident. I think it was designed to wake us up and help us understand that don't ever get comfortable. you know,
No.
and learn how to manage your life well by investing, giving. Like you do the PHL ride. I love that ride. Every year we go to Austin, we get on motorcycles and we take a ride. We get escorted by the police. There's celebrities there that we get to meet and have fun with. But the most important part about that is the money goes to the 100 Club to support the Blue, to support all the first responders, which are very important to us because, you know, I had a friend who was like, we don't need the police. I said, yeah, so when you're getting robbed or you've been beat up or mugged, what are you going to do? He says, I would call 911 right away. And I said, well, okay, you're on hold now. You know,
Yeah.
so and these people, you know, what we do this for is they risk their lives every single day. And some
Yeah.
of them don't return home and their families have no way to move forward or to feed their kids. And I think what you and John Paul did with the love, peace, and happiness, or peace, love, and happiness ride, excuse me, my dyslexia kicked in, is
So I
just
even want the shirt so
magical.
you would remember.
No, you know, I sometimes had to miss a couple of rides, and even if you don't ride a motorcycle, just being able to attend and support the cause that it stands for is just a wonderful gift to give back, and you could do that locally. You could do that, you know. With peace, love, and happiness, and you know, also Gary too. You do a lot with Ultimate Face. Every time we did a
Yeah.
charity event, every time we did something besides having the makeup to teach people how to do makeup, we said, "Hey, we're doing a charity event. You're the first to jump and say, listen, what do you need? I'll send it to you for free." So that you know, you contributed all this great makeup not only to give out but to be used so that we can you know, bring happiness and joy to so many lives.
Well, you're my change agent, and you know when you look at this, and I'll give you this little just a little bit to say to everyone because they think, oh, you closed a business, you failed. You know how many businesses I closed in my career, and it's being not hung up on your ego, but smart enough as a business person to say, I can't put another nickel here, or it's going to kill my business here. And there's nothing wrong with that. When you look at Steve Jobs or John Paul or you, me, any one of our friends who are just perpetual entrepreneurs, and people say, why do you do that? I said, well, first, I'm unhireable. No one's going to hire me. I get to work for myself, just like you, because we're irreverent, just like John Paul and Win. But just everyone has to hear this. Julie, it's not a failure. It's just timing, execution. We had everything that made this business successful. It just wasn't time. And you
You
got to
know,
be smart enough to know that it's over.
Gary, I tell people some of my greatest success comes from my greatest failures. And
Yeah.
you know, we call them discoveries. Listen, we learn from these things that happen, and sometimes they're unforeseen, and you can't just go on like you said and keep burying yourself. You're right. Look at Macy's. Look at J.C. Penney's. Look at all these big department stores. Look at all these big companies. General Electric. You know, they all had some type of closing, but they just condensed and worked out the issues to work better for everyone and for themselves as well, so they can continue to offer the services that they do. And you're right, Steve Jobs, he's not with us, but he left a legacy so that people can build upon, because he's
Yeah.
not there still inventing the iPhone. You know, people are building upon that legacy that he left. But I'm sure him and Bill Gates and so many others, even Bezos, how many mistakes, discoveries, and businesses did they have to close in order to
Oh, yeah.
rebuild bigger and better and smarter? So just
Well,
because you failed at something, it's not the end. There's a bigger and better way to do it.
well, I think you know, and I'll leave it with this because we're very much a big fan and friend, and we love our brother John Paul. But if his first job didn't pan out and they fired him for not being management material, you, me, Win, and everyone who's in this Paul Mitchell family wouldn't be here because that propelled him to do what he did with Paul. And now, when you look at the next phase of Paul Mitchell, his daughter Michaeline is a rock star, and the way she handles things is so different because Paul Mitchell wouldn't get to where it's going the old way. And she's the next generation. She's a lot like you and I and your dad, where it doesn't matter what other people are saying, the noise is gone. So I want to leave there and ask one question. Boys and girls, watch his face. How's your daughter?
Ah! She is she turned 2 years old in August, and my God, I forgot what it was like, to have a toddler running around, but and a girl now, not two
That's
boys,
a
a
girl.
girl, which is more. I don't know. I think I gave them both the equal hugs and kisses, but I still play like, way I did with my boys. I mean, it's just so magical when I just go to the bathroom. I haven't gone anywhere, and I'll come out and she'll be like, "Hi, Dada." It's like,
You're back.
where you been all this time? And she'll come and hug and kiss, and my God, if that's not worth living for, whether it be grandkids or kids, but this 2-year old has my heart, and she's learning new words every day. And it's just so amazing. And people were like, but you're 60 years old, and what's wrong with you having a baby? Well, first of all, I didn't have that baby.
Yeah.
But daddy still got it. But no, my
Yeah.
wife, but my wife had the baby, right? My wife had the baby. But here's the thing: she's a little bit younger than me, 20 years. But anyway, uh,
Yeah.
I will do anything to stay healthy and be around as much as I can, and give her the wisdom that she needs, and allow her to make some discoveries, but always be there for her. I don't need to get extra shotguns, because I hopefully will help her understand and respect her temple. Um, and know that if a man is mistreating her, she knows how to take care of herself, and respects herself to do that. So a parent can, I don't even want to think about that yet, because I want to enjoy what I have right now. And that's the moment
Yeah.
with her. So thank you for asking,
Well,
because you have a son, and how fast does it go? He's doing so many great things, Dakota. I mean, he's singing, he's playing. I never thought he'd pick up a guitar and start singing like he does. But the boy has no fear. He's out there and he's doing it. And where'd he get that from?
I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, you and his mama. We all sit there and go,
Yeah.
I don't know who he took after. We know who he took after, the mailman. No, he took after
Yeah,
you.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's curly hair. Well, he's off. He's at Berkeley College of Music. He got in with a song he wrote. We're super proud of him. And here's something that you don't have to worry about. First, I know your boys. So if anything goes sideways, how do you say her name again?
Evangelina.
Evangelina. But
Evangelina.
but cousin Dakota's second degree black belt. She makes a phone call. He'll show up for her. Don't
Oh,
you worry about a thing, Evangelina.
I'm sure he will. But you know what? If Dakota ever needs any advice, because was it Berkeley your sister went to, Glenn? Yeah, she just graduated from Berkeley. Glenn's
Berkeley College
sister.
of Music
Yes, yep. She was
in
accepted.
Boston.
Yep, yep,
Yeah.
yep. So she just graduated. So if he wants to connect with her, connect with Glenn, and put them together, and she can give them. She lived off campus, but she attended and graduated this year. Which
Wow.
her guidance counselor once again told her, "You're applying to Berkeley. You'll never make it." My
Yeah.
sister had the urge to go throw that in their face, but I'm like, you don't have to
Yeah.
prove anything to anyone. She made it. She did
She's That's a
it.
gift. So I'm going to turn your show back over to you. Any last parting words of advice before you take over for those
uh,
people listening?
well, listen, any words of advice would be, go after your dreams, live in faith, don't live in fear, accept the mistakes and learn from them, and keep growing. Don't let it hold you back, nor let nobody else hold you back. And I explained to the kids not long ago, think of yourself as a seed. You're a plant and you're starting to sprout. What do you need to do? And they're like, well, we need to water ourselves. I said, right. What does water stand for? Knowledge, right? You're feeding yourself knowledge. You also need the sunshine, the nutrients, to be fed all the right minerals and vitamins. Those are your mentors. But what's
Yeah.
going to grow around you? And they said, weeds. I said, what is the job of a weed? They said, to take over the plant. I said, yeah, wither it and kill it, right? So what do you need to do? Those weeds stand for the people who try to steal our dreams, disrupt our lives. You need to keep picking those weeds out. And guys, I know you know who the weeds are in your life. Pick them out. Don't hate them. Just understand they're scared. They don't want you. They don't want to lose you. But you got to pick the weeds, and you got to keep watering yourself, and you got to keep getting the sunshine. Because if you were an apple seed, that apple seed will turn into a tree with multiple apples and many fruits. And you are possible for many fruits and enjoy those fruits. That's my closing.
Well, all right, and here's the name of the show: Turning Struggles into Style and Success with Giulio Veglio. I love that.
Da, 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 yay! Spellman. Hey, Gary, I have a couple questions for you. Um,
Fire away.
you got involved with so much, and you were always, I've never seen one time you were angry, no matter how many times people try to cut you at the knees, or us, shall we say. But you went from working for a distributorship, and then owning a distributorship, and then founding your own companies and creating a charity that does so much for others. How, what, where, what happened to you? What slapped you in the face? I mean, or what gave you that energy to keep doing that?
That's a great question, and it came down to I realized forgiveness was I was being selfish. Forgiveness to me was a selfish act because once I forgave those who were trying to hurt us, I didn't think about it anymore. And then the trajectory I went on is the love of a good woman. What a lot of people don't understand, if you choose the right life partner, as you know,
Mhm.
you're good. And I like to brag about it. You want to know who the best salesperson is? It's me. I talked to one of the most intelligent, beautiful women into marrying me. And we created a life that was based solely on making each other better.
No,
And
I
if
think
you
there was
choose
two
someone
of
who,
you. I think it was two of you. It
yeah,
was you and Jack Daniels, wasn't it? Your friend Jack
yeah,
Daniels? No,
oh, Patron tequila.
no,
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
once she lost all control, then it was easy.
And you were in Hawaii at
And
the time, am I correct?
yeah, well, you and I had just, and this is, a lot of kids ask me that question: why did you sell your distributorship? Is because I almost lost my wife and my child in childbirth because we waited till she was 40, and just like you, at 41, she got pregnant on the pill, right? So
I'm a
we,
fighter.
we well, I could swim. So when I met her, you and I had just brought the distributorship we worked for back from a negative year with Paul Mitchell 2 years prior. And this is why I love John Paul as a friend. He had just started Patron Tequila, and he took me aside at a signature gathering, and he knew I wasn't the owner. I was just the worker bee. But he knew me from when we met in Newport, and we already had a friendship. So a lot of people in Paul Mitchell world didn't know how John Paul knew me so well. We had a friendship when I was 22, and when I showed up on this, like you and I showed up at the same time, like who are these two crazy guys? But we need them here, and that was a good feeling. We were like Mutt and Jeff of trouble, but poo happened when we were together, and it was good poo, not bad poo. See, I didn't swear. I'm getting better at it.
That's all
So
right.
when we sat there, John Paul pulled me aside and said, "You need to understand, if the sales don't come up in that company, I am going to take my brand from you. And you can tell the powers that be this is why. I promise the market good service, good education, and good product. They're not getting that." And so when I went back and said that, there was some hemming and hawing, but thank God the person I worked for was understanding. He was a teacher. And he goes, "We got to buckle down." And then all of a sudden, there was a shift of a focus to, this is our best partner, John Paul. And when we came back, we got that Dolphin Trophy in Hawaii because we turned a negative into a positive 33 growth. And you were a
Wow.
big part of that because we buckled down and we taught the classes like we were supposed to. We stopped focusing on ugly, like, and I won't mention the names, but they're not even in business anymore. But as a distributor, they were taking on all these brands to fill stores,
Yeah.
and we forgot what got us to the dance. And that was my first real lesson on business. Like, this is your blue chip stocks. Why are we buying penny stocks over here? You know what I
So
mean?
so I
And
want
so,
I want everybody to understand what you just said. Remember what brought you to the dance. So many people forget that what they were focused on and what got them to where they were. And like you said, they started focusing on multi different things, multi lines, and so on and so forth. So the focus got off of what made you successful in the first place, rather than building upon that. They
yeah,
totally thought it was going to sustain itself, and it doesn't. You still have to pay
no.
attention. So remember, I love that. Remember what brought you to the dance and keep on dancing, and you're just going
Yeah.
to get better at it.
And so with that being said, when we get this trophy in Hawaii, we're both there. And now I'm getting mentioned like I'm creating something. Like this is Gary. And John Paul was always my friend, and he was so proud and so supportive. But a real beautiful woman, and I'll tell it the way I remember it, walked across the pool area wearing a two-piece Versace bathing suit, purple, yellow, and green, big hat, Chanel glasses, introduced herself, and man, she was gorgeous. Legs up to her shoulders, the finest shape I've ever seen. And we hit it. It was that moment in time where this is for real. And if you've never had love at first sight, it exists.
Well,
And
Gary,
you
stop.
know
Enough about me. I brought that outfit
that.
on accident. So talk about Lori. No, you're right.
So
Lori is just not only beautiful on the outside, because I got to add to this, she is beautiful on the inside. And you needed, and she was a strong woman. You want to talk about a strong woman in business? You got to look at Lori. She's not
she
only humble, she is so strong, and so many people can learn from her, but you needed that strong influence in your life.
I really did because you and I grew up similar, seven kids, no money, and pretty much. And we were in an interview once, and John Paul and I were talking, and I forget who it was. I think it was Times or somebody like that. And they said, "How did you meet?" And then, "What's your story?" And I was like, seven kids, no money. And they said, "What was that like?" And I was like being a homeless guy's dog. We're all fighting for the same stuff. We got nothing. And so when she came into my life, it really meant something to me because you said it best. John Paul did this at the schools you own now in Louisiana. The prior owner was my brother-in-law and sister-in-law. And when they opened those schools, in the audience, because Lori's New Orleans, John Paul is so gracious. He stops. He goes, this guy, everyone stand up that I named. So like 30 people stand up in the audience, and I'm not going to name names. And he goes, you have all one thing in common. If Lori Bernard Spellman wasn't in your life, you wouldn't be here. She introduced Wynn to John Paul. Quietly never takes the heat. And I've never seen her lose her composure. I've seen people take shots at her time and time again. She succeeded in a male dominant industry. When we took Texas, we were doing 30,000 a month. After childbirth, when we decided to sell it, it was doing 7.5.
Nah.
That's what she is. And it gave birth to the Louisiana Vanguard Nation. Without Lori, there is none of that. And there is nothing more important than going back to Dance with Who Brung You. You and I have been friends. You were one of the first people when we launched our company. You said, I am an ultimate face partner. Then you took it even further and became almost you are the standard of makeup education in Florida. Again, back to what you said earlier, you did something that everyone said you couldn't do, and you had Super Cosmo. I've never seen such a successful program. And so when I met Lori and we got married, I knew I'd found home. It's going to be tomorrow is our 29th year married, Julia. 29 years
Hey,
tomorrow.
happy anniversary.
And I'm not
My
going to
baby.
lie. On multiple times I've woken up with her with a pillow coming down, and she said, "I just get your pillow." I thought you were uncomfortable. But she's patient, she's loving, she's a fantastic, one of the best moms I've ever met. And it's when you choose right from jump, they say 90% of your happiness and success comes from your life partner. And you know that when you look at your daughter and your wife, and I know it, and John Paul when he looks at Eloise, this is what it's about. And then I could go real deep on why it's important. But for those of you who are listening, don't give away your sparkle. Save it for the right person. When you meet that right person, that sparkle becomes such a bright light that it illuminates everywhere you go.
Yeah. And I learned a lot in my second marriage that I maybe could apply to my first, Gary. But it is what it is. But once again, we learn, we grow, and I have an amazing partner, and she is just supported, just like Lori is, and she's my just greatest supporter and fan of all, just like Lori and Dakota are for you. But you said something interesting. You said she became a big target. What what can you expand more on that? Because most people don't understand that not everybody's going to love you, and the more successful you become, the bigger your target. Could you expand on that a little bit more? What you meant?
Well, it's because she is so unassuming and so good at what she does. It scares the people who don't have the skill set or the talent to go up. So there has to be a reason why someone excels faster than someone else. And the people with the closed mind who don't take the risks, they say it's because who you know, you came from money, or it's because you're so damn pretty, or whatever it is. It's not because she worked 80 hours a week in the beginning. She was on a bus going across Texas teaching classes with, Rigby Fredericks of the world and all these people. And you look at high end names of people in the industry like a Sam Mercado or even a Rigsby that she gave the stage to. And so when people see that, they get jealous. As simple as that, they get jealous. And there are always detractors, which, as a husband, you know this, if you hear something sideways about your wife, I'm quietly showing up at your house and I'm going to punch you in the throat. It's as simple as that. And I know my role. My role is to growl at the dog who gets too close to my porch. But she's never, ever, and that's and you know this with your wife, I don't have to defend her because her intelligence is so high and her emotional ability to diffuse it and not take it personal and actually correctly put you in your place when everyone in the room goes, wow, you just got slapped around and you don't even know it. And that's what I love about that, because if they're not talking about you, then you're not doing your job. If you don't, when you leave the stage and 90% of the room goes, man, Giulio's amazing, that 10% who takes a shot at you, I want to hear them, because that means I upset you, the naysayer, the negative person. I got to you. And Mike Tyson said it best: if you get mad, then they own you. So when you said it earlier, I don't get mad. In my head right now, if I heard something, this side of the brain be like, all right, what's the address? Giulio, we get a shovel, Giulio. We got some work to do. And you're one of those guys I could call. But as you mature and you realize that anger, you need it. It's a great, great thing to motivate you, but it's not what you lead with. It's not how you live your life, because if you have the servant's heart, you have to understand the person who's downplaying Lori, you, me, or John Paul or Wynn is just jealous and scared.
And that's where our students, like, when they come into school, they just left high school, a lot of them, not all of them, because we have a lot of generations in there.
Yeah.
And they don't have to sell their soul anymore. They don't have to belong to the popular group. They're paying for their own journey, but yet they get still caught up into worrying about what people think of them, or
Oh yeah.
they become the target of somebody because they're doing great, or they're afraid to become the target, so they succumb to the evil of the one who lives in the darkness and is trying to disrupt everybody's journey. What good advice can you give my kids? And I call them my kids, and they're, some of them are my age starting school.
Yeah.
But what advice can you give them to say, hey, don't focus on that target? What did, or don't worry what people say. Can you just give them some good advice on that?
You and I speak at your school all the time, and I use that book, The Four Agreements, because as you and I both know, like right now, anyone can go become a business coach.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean anything to me if they're on a stage telling me how to run my business, but they never run a business. Where's your credibility? So
That's
there's a
an
lot of hype.
that's what we call an entrepreneur. But go ahead.
Entrepreneur. I like that. We should make that shirt, like the donkey has the coaching business and a pile of entrepreneurs underneath it. I like that. So when we're talking to your kids, you can see it. They're happy to be out of school, away from the cliques. But a lot of times I share with them the four agreements about not taking it personal, but you also have to be impeccable with your words. So if you're hearing this, when you speak, that's your greatest gift. And if you use it to detract against other people, it sends a message loud and clear that you're an ass and that you're a loser and you're scared, and whoever you're talking about, you're jealous of and you want to be. And if you think that every time you hear that, all of a sudden you boost up. And we have to also remember we're primates. Self-preservation in our brain is an old wired machine that was built to defend against, the head alpha male in our clan. And if you shined in the clan, he thought you were trying to take his ladies, and he would beat you with a wooden bone. Now, if you look at, we don't have to fight saber-toothed tigers. We don't have to worry about the alpha male in the huddle anymore. So we have to also rethink our brain. So when these kids want to shine, they've been so used to people saying, don't outshine me. You can't outshine me. I say, if you want to get over this, go somewhere where no one can hear you and you scream for 5 minutes as loud as you can, because that rewires the brain and how it works, because now you're screaming and getting attention and there's no one there to club you, like the old mindset. And when I heard a gentleman who's a neuro whatever about the brain saying this is where we get caught up, where people are afraid to shine, because we have that self mechanism. And you know this guy, I think his name is David Goggins, the ex-Navy SEAL. He says when you hit that wall and you want to quit, you're only at 40% of your capacity. I started applying that, and this is not being braggadocious. I've been racing mountain bikes for 28 years now, and I've always come close. Last year, I won the 24-hour race at age 59. Because at that, when I said I'm going to quit, I heard that voice saying, you're at 40%. And if I had quit then, I would have got second again. And I said, not today, mofos. And I kept going, and it was 4 a.m. when I went back around that out in the woods, and my lights were flickering. And when I came in, I was 40 minutes ahead of my second place competitor because I didn't quit when the voice said, stop. And that's self-preservation. We don't have to worry about that. You're only at 40% because we're wired to protect. So anyone who's attending Giulio schools, first and foremost, you're in one of the best schools in the country. Secondly, you're with one of the finest human beings who's going to take a nurturing approach to your graduation time. When you give him your time, money, and space in his school, I can guarantee you're coming out better than most. How can I do that? 2 years in a row, Orlando is the best school. Then you have 5 other schools that are cut from the same cloth with the same leadership, the same mentality, the same culture. So that's my advice to anyone listening. The naysayers will always be there, and that they're the best things to have, because turn it into motivation. That means you're making a difference. You got someone's attention. You're scaring it. Like when I ran for mayor, they were, it was hilarious. These are professional politicians. And you got me, and I'll never forget it. And this is why I owe a debt of gratitude to our industry. We had about 2,000 people that are announcing the candidates. And, you know, it's a neutral race, so you don't have to declare Republican or Democrat. But I declared what I was, and I was the Purple Party. So the first question one of these little, the usual suspects asked me was, what the hell's the Purple Party? And immediately I got into that mode. I go, crap, how do I define this? I go, I'll call on my people. All of a sudden I'm Moses. I reach out across the sea and I go to my hairdressers. How many hairdressers out there? And you know us. They go, wow, 50, 60 of them start screaming. I said, what happens? You take red and blue and you mix them. Purple! Boom. I said, I'm in the middle. That's the Purple Party. And that's how we find our campaign. So when you're out there, if you're happy and you're not hurting anyone, go full throttle, put your foot down and jam on. That's my advice.
And I love it that you ran for mayor. I mean, you almost inspired me to do that, but you know, I just can't play that game.
Obviously, I can't either.
But you know, you did it. You did it. You didn't, you know, you didn't hear people say, Gary, you can't do it. You don't know nothing about politics. No, you learned a lot and you put yourself out there. Whether you run or lost, you could say at least, I did it.
Here's the cool thing, Giulio. I am the only candidate in the history of politics that gave all the money I raised back to charity. We donated $610,000 to the charity.
Wow.
Now, one story. Only person that talked to me was Fox News, out of the big Fox News. Not one local newspaper came to me, not one local TV, because that would have put me in the office. Yeah. But that's politics. Good old boys control it and good old girls. And if you scare them, which it's a business. And like, yes, what I learned is when I sat down and once they announced the candidates, my phone didn't stop for, you need a consultant, you need lawn signs, and it's a massive business. I didn't buy one lawn sign, didn't get one consultant, and it didn't stop. But the cool thing is now they're talking to me about going to Senate. They think I could do it in the Senate. But the people that are approaching me, like I knew we had something right because I had Megan Womack come on board free of charge. She ran Bloomberg's empire. This girl is a powerhouse. And she said, you know, I just saw you speak because the debates were mine because all I did was tell the truth. So every debate, I owned it. And so when she saw the first 2, she said, I'm going to help you run this campaign because you and John Paul, obviously John Paul wants to be here. He can't be here. There was only 2 of us, me and JP. But when she took over, now people are out there saying, this is the kind of disruptor we could use. because, when I sat down, the Republicans wouldn't even talk to me because I didn't declare that. Democrats wanted no part of me because they knew I wasn't woke. That's the problem. It's because I scared that more than anything. Now, Republicans just like, yeah, we got our candidate. I said, well, she's going to lose to me for sure. I'm telling you straight up. That's going to happen. But she got more votes because she spent more money. And then if you go down, it's as clear as day. Whoever spent the most won. Whoever spent the second most came in second. Whoever spent the third most came in third. That's as simple as it is. And when you see it's play for pay, and that's why when you have those kids in your school, their family invested and trusted you, and they go to your school. And if it's someone like I just got back from Dallas, speaking up there with our good friend John Turnish. Welcome back, John. John had a brain bleed. He just in
Yeah, I just
August.
heard when Steve Cowan had his
Yeah,
he announced that he was just recovering from his. I'm like, what is going on?
I hope it's not catchy because I had lunch with him. If you see me with a faucet, but we're surrounded by people who have taken on this role of I am going to take your child to the next level. Hopefully, they come out this way, and thank you for trusting me. What they don't see about you is you take that as a great honor and a gift. It's not money. It's not a job. It's like you were once that kid, and you're giving them like everything goes full circle to what we're talking. The movie is about you, and you're not the hero. You're the mentor. You're the guide. You're Obi-Wan Kenobi, and they're the Luke Skywalker. So many people want to play they want to play the hero, and they want to play the victim. The challenge we have now is everyone's got this victim mentality,
Listen,
and
some of
so
them want to play the villain. They
yeah,
were
the,
bred
well,
for
the villain. That's
that.
like the person that says, "Forgive me, but I'm kind of bitchy."
Yeah.
Okay. I enjoy it. I'm like, here you go. This is so it's still that mentality. But when I was talking last night, and they said the victim, and I said, the role of the victim in all the movies we've ever written is one. It's got two jobs: make the hero look great and the villain look bad. And you know how long they last? About 40 seconds. They get beat up and off in an ambulance. You're out of the movie. You play the
Yeah.
victim. That's it. You're done. So to answer your question, that's the advice I have: is you have to be true to yourself. You have to be happy in your own skin, and you have to surround yourself, like you gave the tree analogy. Don't listen to the weeds. The weeds yell the loudest and try and make you conform to their bad behavior so they look better. The weed wishes it was an apple tree. That's what the weed wants, but the weed doesn't have the infrastructure, the soil, the fertile, the nurturing of the farmer. The farmer sees the weed as the villain and says, let's eradicate that weed.
Yeah.
That's the challenge.
And,
Those,
and,
like
and
those
and that's the same thing
people.
with the people who put the target on your back. Get rid of
Yeah,
them.
they're
And
the
and
weed.
don't spend. Why they're that person who put the target on your back is out having a good time. You're the one that's moping and becoming the victim, as I heard you correctly. So
Yeah,
stop being the victim and go enjoy the life.
yeah.
You've been very successful, and being in business. I'm going to ask you one last question before we close it up because I know your time is valuable. But one other thing too is people look at business people like they'll see you and you said, yes, you produced 7 million in 1 year. Now, was that 7 million all for your pocket?
No,
This is where they
no.
get confused. Well, you're a millionaire. Well, they don't, if you're going to be an entrepreneur or you're going to move on into business, just because you made X amount of money doesn't mean that you get to keep it.
No, you have to pay it. And just simple math, we ran average between 18 and 20% payroll. So 1.4 million went to our staff. So now that's not 7 million, that's 5.5. And then you look at cost of goods. Let's say the cost of goods were 40%. Now you're down to 2.5. And so they see the big number, and then you go, well, what about my biggest customers who have 142 salons who didn't pay me for 2 months? They owe me 400,000. And in all fairness, and you and I went through this in the early days, you go out there and you hustle and you trust someone. And your biggest distributor for us didn't pay me. So out of that 7 million, you've got, let's say, $300,000 worth of goods gone out of your inventory. So you have to reorder, and then you're waiting for that 300 to come back from them so you can pay that because your manufacturer says you're going to pay me in 10 days, which nobody understood. So and you understand that. You're like, I'm waiting for my disbursements for my tuition. I can't do anything if I don't get those. That's your cash flow.
Yeah.
And then what if they say, I don't want to be here anymore? Now you got to pay back. So people just hear numbers and think, woohoo.
Yeah,
No,
they come in and count the amount of students we have and times it whatever tuition was, and they think that's my pure profit. And it's like, no, for every student I get, there is a 10% par, because insurance goes up every year.
oh yeah,
Liability insurance, health insurance, uh, employee tax. I mean,
maintenance on
people
that
for,
building.
it just goes out of whack. But anyway, the we could spend another time on that, and we could talk more about that. Gary, you have always been a great inspiration to so many, and you travel to all our schools on your own dime as an ambassador with Paul Mitchell and for John Paul, but it's on your own dime, and you call up schools and you're like, I want to come in and speak to the students. There's no hidden agenda there. You truly want to give. And I appreciate that, and I know the students do. They love every time you come in, and I thank you for that because we need more mentors like you. But as we wrap this up, uh, what is what could you leave us with? What could you leave them with? And I know they're going to see you again, but what kind of wisdom can you impress upon them to keep the dream alive?
To keep the dream alive is self-doubt. Like when we go back to what we always talk about, you're your own worst enemy. You're the only person that hears what you're thinking. And so if you're in class saying I can't do this, take 1 second to say I got this instead of I can't. I don't know if I can do that color. I can do that color. Switch your head talk to I can instead of I can't. Fall in love with why you're there and really evaluate why you're there. If you're just doing this because you're confused, you're wasting your time. And that's the commodity we give away so freely that we can't buy. So if you're hearing me now, if you're in love with this industry, then that's what you treat everything as an opportunity. And when you go to school, before you get in that, you sit in your car and go, I will be the best future professional I can be today. I will lead my class through my example. You set that mindset going in. When you go home and you get in your car, you say one more thing. What a great day. I learned so much. I grew. And I know that sounds hokey, but until you switch that negative talk in your head, you'll never go further. You're your own worst enemy. It doesn't matter how much money, who your parents are, what happened to you. And that's the other thing. Whatever happened to you in the past brought you to here. So let's leave it there and let's stay focused on what you need to do. And now go right back to love what you're doing, put your foot down on the gas and go forward with a great attitude. That's how you did it. That's how I did it. I believed.
And you surely do, and you do. How do they say that? Walk the walk, talk the talk. Talk the talk, walk the walk the talk. However you want to put it, you truly live it. And you know what? I have to thank you. I mean, today you threw me off guard a little bit by interviewing me, and I hate talking about me.
Yes, you do.
I have a box full of accolades, and I just keep them there because it's like, I I want to help you. I don't want to brag to you. And, thank you for doing that. And I thank you for being who you are and your family, for who they are. And they're just, you are all just wonderful people. And I hope that we can have more discussions because I want to take this show to a level of commitment to oneself and leadership to oneself before they can lead others. And we're going to be talking about different, commitment, integrity, compassion, so that we can hit every avenue of what it takes to be truly inspirational and grow within your journey and or become a great leader for others and a great example for others. I hate the word leaders because some people use them as just titles, but
Yeah.
let's go back to the original verbiage of that. Leader is a mentor, person of influence, that they become a great influence by their own journey. So I thank you for your time. And I know it's a busy time and we started early this morning. And I look forward to many more conversations with you. And I hope many people get to hear your great message. So God bless. Don't go anywhere, Gary, because I have to download this message. So stay where you are. Everyone, thank you for joining the Giulio Show. And thank you for allowing us to bring you our message. Have a great day and God bless. Yay! Yay!